in this new global context, what is it that you fear and what are you willing to celebrate?
Well, I think in an odd sort of way, the world's coming together to unite against terrorism. The horrible situation in France has really gotten a lot of international sympathy and support.
That's right.
And people are recognizing we have to work together to stop the terrorism.
Let me ask you about US, because the world seems to be cheering that economy. Do you believe it's a sustainable recovery that US is seeing, or could there be hiccups along the way?
Obviously, there can be hiccups, but so far the U.S. has done a good job of fixing the banking system. They were the first to go in and get the banks fixed. They did the quantitative easing. We have employment up. We have good corporate earnings. Savings are up. So right now the picture looks pretty good in the U.S. Obviously, it has to keep going, but it looks pretty good.
A lot of people are preempting what Janet Yellen is going to do eventually. She is going to raise rates. What is the Bain view on this? By when do you see her raising rates, and how will this impact emerging markets? Do you believe they are better prepared this time around to weather that crisis when and if not, but when that happens?
Well, if I knew when they raise rates, I would probably win the lottery. But in general, if you step back, low interest rates spur growth. We don't have a lot of growth. There hasn't been a lot of inflation. In fact, the worry now in the world is deflation. We've come out of a situation where in the 80s, when I came out of school, the number one thing the Fed was to stop inflation.
That's right.
And that was a mentality for 30 years. So it's really hard to get out of the mentality to say now we're having deflation, so you need more money out there. So there'll probably be some gradual rise in rates. I think the key for Yellen, and I think she's following this policy, is to move it slowly so business can react and government can react. But so the most likely case is a slow increase in rates over a long period of time.
I have a question to ask you on ECB, because there is a lot of reliance that the world is seeing on unconventional monetary policy. Mr. Draghi, and we're calling him Super Mario, has tried to inject a lot of steroid in the system. In the long run, do you believe this is a risk that the world is building on, that the world is egging along?
Well, what they're really trying to do is put more money into the system to stop this deflationary aspect that I talked about.
Yes.
It is a short-term solution. I think it is a good solution, so it moderates any kind of fluctuations or volatility or crashing. But eventually, you have to do the structural reforms to go along with that monetary policy. So hopefully, the monetary policy will dampen the downturn, but then they'll do the structural reforms to get it back on track.
There was a time last year when we spoke, you were worried about what was happening in India. You didn't say it in so many words, but everybody we spoke to here was worried about which way would India go. In Davos in 2015, we've come back to this summit with a government in full majority, with a will for reforms, making the right noises. But the fear about India always is we promise so much and deliver just yet. Does that continue to bother
so far
like
the progress has looked very good. The Indian stock market's up. People are really reacting favorably throughout the world to Modi's calls for reform, more foreign direct investment, freeing up of the economy. As I said last year, India has all the ingredients. It has very educated people. It has a great workforce. You have low oil prices now, which really impacts India because you have mostly imported oil. So the picture is very good if the country can follow through on the kinds of reforms that they're talking about.
In the emerging market basket, India was attracting a lot of inflows, but the fear is when the interest rate hike does happen in the US, there could be a lot of flow of capital from India. Is that something that we need to be prepared for, or do you believe, given the structural reforms that are being tried to be brought about and the growth prospects here, money will continue to flow in?
I think there's two factors. One, I don't see rapid rises in interest rates in the U.S., which will moderate any outflows from other countries. And secondly, India is a growing and diverse economy. With these kinds of optimism and what Modi is doing in the business community in India, it'll probably be a great area to invest in the next 3 to 5 years.
What about our neighbors? What's your view on China? I've got two very distinct opinions on China. There's one pack that says they're worried about what's happening in our neighborhood. And there's one that believes that even at a 7% growth rate, so what? It is a large country, large economy. Which side of this debate would you want to throw your weight behind?
You don't have to be on either side of the debate. It's all about valuation. You look to say, what is the company going to grow that you're going to invest into? And China is one of the few markets that we would say has a tailwind. It has market growth. Many of the Western economies, Europe is flat or down, so you have a little bit of a tailwind. So the real issue is what is the relative pricing versus that growth. And if you price that right, you can actually make great returns for your investors in China.
But what are the headwinds in China? You've spoken about the tailwinds. What about the headwinds that exist?
Well, I think the headwinds that exist are, can they continue government reform? He has a corruption program going on. Can they continue to open up the markets? Those are key issues for even a larger expansion in China. But they've done a pretty good job right now with the infrastructure and being friendly to business, and we've had very great success there.
Find us on Facebook at facebook.com/ETNow, and don't forget to click the like button. You can also follow us on Twitter at ETNowLive. To stay updated with all our programming, hit the subscribe button on our YouTube channel by logging on to youtube.com/user/ETNow.